Who do you think is the most powerful person in the United States government? Who is the most powerful person in the United States? If you ask people on the street a question like that, most of them would instinctively reply, why, the president. Or if you caught someone in an especially anti-capitalist vein, they would tell you the robber barons and whoever's richest at the moment. No, I maintain something completely different. I'm say that the single most powerful person in the United States is the individual cop on the street. The reason is because he is uniquely positioned to take your life and throw it headlong into the machine of prosecution. Okay? No one else comes out and does that. Legislators who write the laws don't do that. The prosecutors who enforce them or who criminally prosecute the lawbreakers don't do that. It's the cop on the street. And this can be a terribly individually arbitrary thing. Now, everyone should know this by now. Which brings us to the horrible case of Dante Wright. Has anyone seen this yet? Let's go take a look. If you haven't seen the footage of this incident, here it is. This happens via the recount at Twitter. Take a good long look at this. Okay? Here it is. I'm going to play it for you. This is a 36-second clip. All right, it started all over again. That's that. Oh, man. Where to start? It seems like there are two converging lines of irrationality here. And it almost appears like the old philosophical question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? In this case, it would be, which came first, the cops or Dante Wright? I'm going to hold this image on screen here for a minute because we're going to go back to it and point out a couple of things. The very first thing that I would point out is the irrationality or the ignorance of a person like Dante Wright. I don't know why that young man did not understand this, which is vital and crucial. Police these days have to be treated like bad dogs. That's how you have to approach them. I've said it many times. They are incapable by doctrine and training, incapable of reasoning to a moral conclusion on their own powers. That's forbidden to them. And all that they know is procedure. And the procedures themselves now, a fruit of the war on drugs, are bureaucratically irrational in their inability to contextualize events. Now, that means the same thing. A police officer walking up on something like this is unable to bring his mind to the context of the events. He can't even see it. He's not permitted to work that out because procedures take care of that. Now, we have people screaming up and down the line for more training for cops, which means more procedures, which means taking their minds more out of this. Their own thinking and ethics become more and more remote from every event. Mr. Wright didn't understand this. People look at this and they'll be rightfully confused. What on earth made that young man try to get away? What did he think was going to happen? I don't know. But I also don't know why he didn't understand the power with which he was confronted. There are, 3 cops on that scene? One of them shoots him, all right? But those 3 cops are not all there is to it. And the train of logic through all of this strikes me as obvious. They all have radios. They all have enormous force behind them just waiting. That street will be packed so thick with cop cars that you can't walk through it. If those guys push the button and call for it, they can call down airstrikes if they had to. We saw this at Waco, didn't we? Why didn't he understand this? What is the... I can understand the ethical impulse to try to get away. He's holding values that are under threat from the police at this point, and he wants to protect them or extend them. Now, be they whatever they are, the joint in his car, the gun that was cited in his outstanding warrant, whatever it is, if he wants to go home to mommy, those are the values that he's attempting to preserve in a moment of flight like that. But what he doesn't understand is that impulse is in no way compatible with the politics of the situation. They are arbitrarily and completely authoritatively in command of this situation. And they'll do everything that they have to assert their authority. That means they'll kill you. And if you want to take the logic of resistance into a dispute over, say, a motor vehicle tag, we're going to show you that in a moment. If you want to take that impulse into resistance, that impulse to resistance into a fight like that, you're risking your life. Because if they have to, they'll kill you. If they think they have to. And they won't stop to think that they are taking a human life over a bureaucratic diktat that shouldn't be there to begin with. I mean, I don't know if you understand this. If you didn't notice already, I am completely opposed to DMV law. Nobody should have to register their car. We're free people. All right? Now, of course, the Judys and Karens of the world will stand up and give you every sort of rationale why the government ought to be authorized to register your property and command and control you like this. Command and control you like what? What are you talking about, Beck? Well, let me show you. This is going to be the case of U.S. Army Lieutenant Caron Nazario. As it says here, driving December 5th, 2020 in his newly purchased Chevy Tahoe when 2 Windsor police officers, this is Virginia, Joseph Gutierrez and Daniel Crocker, pulled over Nazario while he was dressed in uniform, according to the lawsuit filed April 2nd. I'll include a link to this video. You can watch the whole thing. There's various reporting on this. This story just emerged the other day. Okay, watch this for just a minute. Now, what you're going to see here is a completely different political impulse. Remember, politics, we're talking about the arrangement of social affairs, right? That's what it means in philosophy. Go back to your Aristotle. This man's political impulse conforms to an understanding of the danger involved here. Now, watch this for just a minute, okay? Let's watch.
Put your hands out the window! I can't tell. Put your hands out the window and turn the vehicle off! Put your hands out the window!
I'm going to pause here for a moment. One thing that's interesting here, they just switched to 3 cameras now. Lieutenant Nazario had a camera in his car, which was handy. I'm going to point something out here. Observe that there is no attempt at reason here in the police. Where does this come from? I remember a time when police weren't like this. Now, what happened historically is that because of the war on drugs and the violent responses to that, the violent responses to people kicking down their, having cops kick down people's doors to go enforce the law prohibiting what people can put in their bodies. That became violent when druggies under raids started protecting themselves or ditching evidence. All right, cops come bust in the door while somebody's flushing a half pound of weed down the toilet, right? That's where that came from. This is where no-knock warrants come from. Yeah. Go read Radley Balco's book about the history of this and how SWAT was invented by one dickhead Los Angeles cop. You know his name. You'll recognize it from history if you read any of it. This man, Lieutenant Nazario, understands what's going on here. Except, and I can't fault him, he has a rational fear. The very first thing to notice and observe in this clip is that there is no attempt by the police at reason with him. Now, some are going to tell you that, well, they're afraid too. To begin with, they're the ones with the guns. But we all know that they have been met with overwhelming force from people who either are not interested in reasoning themselves or have definitely nefarious intent involved. Cops have been shot at. There was a case. I just watched a video of that cop getting shot by a druggie on the side of the road in New Mexico. A drug dealer whips out a long arm and shoots this cop behind his pickup truck after he'd been pulled over. It's gruesome. The cops are afraid, but they have never had the introspection to take a good long look at themselves and what they've been doing to the American public in terms of later on, that was a late development, Second Amendment, Fourth or Fifth Amendment, never mind something like Ninth Amendment rights. It never occurs to them, for instance, that way back in the day when no-knock raids were first instituted because dopers were flushing the evidence, that they didn't have a right to do any of that. Okay, they just took the law as handed down from the legislatures, and the war on drugs came from Richard Nixon. They just took that as it appeared to them, almost mindlessly, and went to work, kicking people's doors in. So now they're afraid and confused, and they don't know why any of this happens. And so 50 years later, they've been trained to treat all of us like the enemy, including a man like Lieutenant Nazario. Watch more of this.
Not complying, Judge.
Come around your side.
Let me see your hands! How many occupants are in the vehicle?
What's going on?
How many occupants are in your vehicle?
It's only myself. Why are your weapons drawn? What's going on?
Open the door slowly and step out. Open the door.
I'm not getting out the vehicle. What's going on?
Get out the car. Open the door slowly and get out.
What's going on?
Is there anybody confused about why that man's afraid? I really hope not. He has excellent reason, the way they have come on to him. Now listen to how bad this gets. This, again, happens in Virginia. Listen to this.
Get out of the car, now!
Yeah,
Open
that's
the
going to
door
work.
and get out the car.
That's going to work, officer.
Hold. Keep your hands outside the window. Keep your hands outside the window.
My hands are right here. What's going on?
Get out of the car now.
Get out of
Pause. He's attempting to reason with them. What you actually see here is a practical presumption of guilt. This man is guilty before they know anything about him. And what he's actually guilty of is failing the attitude test. Now, what happened here was they attempted to pull him over on a dark stretch of road, and he didn't want to do that where no one could see what was going on. So he drove into this lighted gas station, about a minute and a half. He didn't attempt to evade them or outrun them. He simply drove to where this gas station was. He's asking a perfectly reasonable question, and all they've got for him is a rabid dog attitude. These cops are not human at this moment. Remember, this chief and salient identifying characteristic of humanity is the ability to reason. That's not what they're doing. They're not even remotely interested in that. Keep watching.
the car.
What's
Now!
going on?
Get out of the car now. Get out of the car now.
I'm serving this country and this is how I'm treated?
Yo, what? Guess what? I'm a veteran too. I don't know, babe.
That's
Get
not-
out of the car.
What's going on?
Get out of the car now.
What's going on?
What's going on? You're fixing to ride the lightning, son.
I'm sorry, what?
Stop. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, you're right. I had to go listen to that again myself. Did you even hear that?
Get out of the car now.
What's going on?
What's going on? You're fixing to ride the lightning, son.
Can you even imagine saying that to anyone? Standing there with that kind of authority in your hands? What's going on is you're fixing to ride the lightning, son. They're saying this to a black man in Virginia. Now, how can he not conclude that there's malicious intent here? Watch.
I'm sorry, what?
Get out of the car now.
What's going
Get
on?
out of the car now. Get out of the car.
Sir, just get out the car. Work with us and we'll talk to you. Get out the car.
You received an order. Obey it.
I'm honestly afraid to get out. Can I?
Yeah, you
ask
should
what's
be.
going-
Get out.
I'm honestly afraid to get out. I believe that, and I could see the sense in it. What's the cop's response? Yeah, you should be. Man, oh man. Man, oh man. I don't know how else to say it. We can't have this. Okay? We're talking about Americans here. These are people who are not accustomed to be pushing around, to be pushed around, or they certainly should not be. This man hasn't done anything wrong. All he did was violate procedure. Now you sort out the difference. Is the procedure wrong or is he? I know the answer whether you do or not. I hope you do. On it went.
What's
Yeah.
going on? What
Get
did
out
I
the
do?
car.
Get out now.
I have not committed any crimes.
You're being stopped for a traffic violation. You're not cooperating at this point right now. You're under arrest
For a traffic-
You're being detained. Okay, you're being detained for
For a
obstruction.
Look, it's at this point that I want to point this out. I want you to listen to that cop and watch his body language and everything about his whole attitude, which is what it is at this point. I have written many times, I am bloody sick of Judy boy cops. And the whole spiel that the poor cops they leave their wives and children in the morning and they never know when they're going to come home at night. All it means to me is that they don't have a full grip on what they're doing. They don't fully understand the nature of their work. And if they want to stay home with their wives and children, then they ought to do something else for a living. Perhaps they should learn to code. They can do that remotely. I'm goddamn sick and tired of that whole thing. I've said it many times. The concept is encapsulated in this one saying, "Dear police, less Molly Ringwald, please. A lot more Wyatt Earp." And the difference is in the personality who understands police work and that it's inherently a risk to their life. And this sort of hysterical cowardice that you see here, it's naked fear. Listen to it. That's not what the job calls for. It calls for cool, confident authority, founded in reason. That's not what they're doing. Listen, keep watching.
Traffic violation. I do not have to get out the vehicle. You haven't even told me why I'm being stopped.
Really?
Get your hands.
Get out of the car now. Get out of the car.
Here they
Get your
go.
hands off me, please. Get your hands off me.
You know what?
Get your hands off me.
Not
Get
a
your
problem.
hands off me.
Back up,
I
Daniel.
didn't do anything.
You know what?
Don't do that.
Sir,
Get out of the car
Don't do
now.
that.
Hey, sir,
Get out of the car now.
Don't do.
look,
I'm trying to talk
get out.
to you.
Okay.
I'm trying to
I'm
talk.
gonna talk to you.
Get out.
Just get out of my
Relax.
car.
Can you please
Get out.
relax? Can
Get
you
out.
please relax?
Get out of the car right now.
Pause. By now, a minute ago, they should have been able to understand what they were dealing with. But they're simply incapable of that because this is how they're trained. They're trained like dogs to hate us and fear us. And they can't do that contextually even. They can't do that. This is all they're capable of. Now, some are better at it than others. However, they all need to be that good. All of them. And just as a side note, I hear Sean Hannity on Fox News every now and then. He'll spout a statistic. 99% of the cops are very good. It's only that 1% that need to be blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he says this as if it's data, as if he's got science, but he doesn't. He doesn't know how many bad cops are out there. And here's the thing. Nobody does. My father pointed out to me a long time ago, Billy, they all wear the same uniform. How do you know? Well, there are ways through that too. You can observe a reasonable human being in any given social context, right? I don't know how much cop experience with cops you have. I have quite a little bit. I've gone out looking for trouble, like I said, in my DMV escapades back in the day. And this sort of thing is exactly why I did that, because I knew what this was coming to. These cops are not being reasonable. Lieutenant Nazario can see that right away, and he's doing his dead level best to reason with them, but they're subhumans now. They can't reason. Watch.
This is not how you treat a vet. I'm actively serving this country, and this is how you're gonna treat me.
Yeah, that's
I
what
didn't
they're
do
gonna
anything. Whoa, hold on. What's going? Hold on. Watch it.
Air 4 OCs deployed.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car now.
That's fucked up. That's fucked
Get out of the car now.
Sir, just get out of the car.
I'm trying to breathe. Ugh,
Get out of the car now.
that's fucked up. That's really fucked up.
Get out of the car and get on the ground now. Get.
I don't even want to reach my seatbelt. Can you?
Take your seat.
Pause. That guy has no business being a cop. Okay. He's got personality issues. I don't know why he became a cop. We could resort to F.A. Hayek again in his chapter 10 of The Road to Serfdom and why the worst get on top. You're looking at one of them right there. There is no way that that man should be handed unilateral deadly power over anyone. He's simply not psychologically fit for it. And I maintain that his training and doctrine, everything that goes into the profession these days, is part of that. He's crippled. This kind of goes to my original question at the top of this podcast. No one else in the United States government would do that to him. No legislator would do that. The people who wrote the laws, right? The people who act as consultants in police training, they don't have the authority to do that. They just teach them how to do it. That's all. No judge would do that. No, certainly no regular citizen would do that without being a criminal himself. They're the only ones who can do this. And that is exactly what Dante didn't understand that afternoon. He didn't understand the political implications of trying to get away from these people. Now, we know about his warrants now. Okay. He had an outstanding warrant on a gun violation, for instance. He was carrying an unlicensed firearm. Do we have to go through the politics of that? Should we? What this means is that he simply didn't have the permission of his political betters, the state, to carry a weapon. There are ethical questions underlying that. Why was he carrying a weapon? How responsible was he with it? I've seen a video of him like smoking a blunt in a car and flashing the weapon while listening to a rap song. Now, oh Lord, one might hope that he'd be taught better than something like that. Weapons should be handled discreetly. I remember an old saying that a gentleman never discusses the men he has killed or the women he has bedded. It's that sort of an ethic. This is not something to be thrown around that way, that lightly. However, he had been judged guilty of a crime in advance of a crime where there was no crime. It was simply a procedural violation thrown down by the legislature. You can't carry a weapon without our permission. Now that's fundamentally wrong. And here's what happened. Let's roll poor Dante again. Listen to this woman. Listen to this woman. He's tensing up. He tries to get away. I'm going to dial this sound back a little bit. I'm going to tase you. I'm going to tase you. Boom. Shit. Oh, man. Oh, man. How sick is that? How goddamn sick is that? I've seen other people make this argument. I'm just going to say it. I'm not even going to make the argument. I'm going to say this. No woman should be a cop. No woman should be a cop. I don't care about the exceptions even, okay? Because they're anomalous. They simply don't have the evolutionary mentality for it. And you can say, I hate women all you want. See if I care. You're dead wrong about it, and that's all I'll say. That's not what it is. What I can't stand is people who pretend to do jobs that they actually can't do. And here you have it. Now, Dante didn't know that he was going to run up on someone like this that day. He should have. He should have understood that the cops are viciously dangerous. They have to be taken with the same caution that one would employ around wild, untrained animals. We can't say they're untrained because in this case, what we have is human beings trained to be animals. That's what this is. And Dante didn't know that. That's a serious problem. And it's a serious problem in that from my observations, begins in black culture now, black urban culture. It's too general to say black culture because there are heights to which black culture ascends that are far beyond something like this. There are countless black people of advanced education and culturing who understand this and would never have attempted to do what he did. Why didn't someone teach him to act with fearful caution around police? What on earth would make that young man, this is important, what on earth would make that young man believe that in that proximity to those officers, he could just get in his car and race away? Was it the movies? Was it his buddies? Was it some misplaced sense of masculine assertion? Okay, they're not going to treat me like a boy. Was it that sort of thing? I don't know what it was, but that seriously has to be confronted. And so the question, It's not a chicken and egg thing. Which came first? The feral cops or the ignorant Dante? And I just want to emphasize here for a moment that there's no moral component to ignorance. What I don't know fills the libraries of the world. I'm not proud of ignorance. I'm not ashamed of it either. It just depends on our interest. Everybody ought to be interested in this and know better than young Dante that you can't do this. Now, in ethical political terms, it would serve everyone at this point to go back to the teachings of Martin Luther King. If you're going to carry an unlicensed weapon, then go make a moral case out of it in a political context. Do it right out front where they can see you. Get yourself arrested for it, which it pains me to say that, because no one should have to pay that political price for exerting a right. But if you want to demonstrate it, this is not the way. It's foolish to ignore a court order like a bench warrant. They're gonna come get you with everything that they have, and if they have to, they'll kill you. And they might kill you even if they don't think they have to, like this woman just did. And so now here we sit, which some of the larger and more grotesque implications of this. Last night I wrote that Antifa battle staff, which is what I call them, will be up all night working on this, and we'll see how many cities we have involved across America by the end of the week. You have the police chief of Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, standing up there damn near weeping today. I'm expected to lead this department. Well, yeah, we can see how that's working out. And all he knows in terms of leadership is handing doctrine to his troops. And we're going to watch due process of something like this, right? Like in the Chauvin case. As if, and it's because the morality of the thing is separated from the legality of it. There was a commentator on the Derek Chauvin case the other day, I could dig that up for you at Twitter, who pointed out that he wasn't going to draw moral conclusions on what happened in the George Floyd case or what should have happened. Right there, that's a problem. It illustrates the disconnection, the separation of law and morality. At that point, what's the purpose of law? So she'll be duly processed one way or another, okay? And we have all the screams about due process, and she should have the same rights and presumption of legal innocence as anyone else. I disagree. I maintain that police, because of their monopoly on the use of force, should be held to a higher political standard. They should be prosecuted for these sorts of things before average citizens. Now, you may disagree. Go right ahead, but I think the reasoning is sound. Well, here we sit. The riot season of 2021, I think, is officially declared, and we'll see how far this goes. The more basic question is, there are questions, more basic questions. When are people going to learn to deal with police officers now, the structure and culture, the mandates of the police? When are people going to understand that and face it and handle them like what they are? And will the police ever become human beings again? I think that's far more fundamental. You tell me. Will there ever be another time in American history when the police will be capable of reason? And we won't have any more Lieutenant Nazarios. Will there ever be a time in American history again when people will understand what they are God's sake, there won't be any more Dante Wrights stumbling into this.